Wildcat 91.9 presents Sports Talk.
It is Thursday, and we have another brand new Sports Talk, and you know what that means. It is time for Fantasy Football Thursday, and we have our first game of Week 6 kicking off in about an hour and a half between the Giants and the Patriots. First off, I'm not quite sure why we're talking about Missouri State there in that news drop. That was kind of an interesting choice.
Hey, local?
I think that was the angle with K-State and KU both on bye. I mean,
we might have Missouri kids coming to K-State because I would also want to leave Missouri, wouldn't you?
I mean, I definitely would, especially the way the Tigers are playing right now. All right, so we got plenty to talk about in terms of fantasy, so let's go ahead and jump right into it, starting with the game tonight. And it's going to be a cold night in Foxborough, as right now the weather is going to be probably in the 40s with possibly some precipitation. So, I mean, for the Giants, no Saquon Barkley, no Sterling Shepard, no Evan Ingram. You're going with Jonathan Hilliman and Elijah Penny as the running back and Daniel Jones as the rookie quarterback. I don't know if you saw this. There was one of those New York New York newspapers. I'm not quite sure which one it was. It said something along the lines of Bill Belichick. If you have anything, or if you have if you're considerate in your cold heart, please spare us, or something along those lines. I thought that was hilarious. So I think this is going to be a pretty ugly game for the Giants.
I think it's going to be awful. They just got the Giants had that run where they were playing really bad teams and they looked good for a while, and then they played an okay team and a pretty good defense in Minnesota, and they got kicked to the curb. I mean, the score, obviously, the Minnesota hasn't been particularly impressive, especially on offense, but they put 28 points on the Giants. Giants only put up 10. That Minnesota defense is for real. You want to talk about a defense that is more for real than Minnesota? It's the New England Patriots. I know that they haven't played good teams this season. They've been playing a bunch of softies. Their hardest game this season was probably Buffalo, and Buffalo's offense, Josh Allen was out for most of it, or for half of it at least. And now we're just talking about a New York Giants team that will not have their top receiver in Sterling Shepard, will not have Evan Ingram, and I'm sad about that too. Not having Evan Ingram in my fantasy lineup's going to stink for this week. I'm looking for Greg Olsen not to put a goose egg up like he did last week. But you're not starting Darius Slayton. You're probably not starting Daniel Jones. I mean, this could be the game where Daniel Jones looks like the guy that we think he probably is. This could be, I mean, he's only thrown one interception, but he's only thrown one touchdown. He threw one touchdown, one interception last week, starting to regress back to where we think he probably is. I think he might throw 2-3 picks on Thursday.
Yeah, if you have him, you're probably not going to start him, most likely. But
definitely not starting Elijah Penny. That run defense in New England's tough.
Yeah, for sure. And same with Jonathan Hilliman as well. I think that's going to be a timeshare anyway. But I do think that Darius Slayton is a guy that is not a bad ad. I think if Sterling Shepard were to miss next week, I think that might not be a terrible play, just because, he's got to throw the ball to someone. And Golden Tate, I don't know, he didn't look like he was going to get a ton of work. I mean, especially based off last week.
I mean, Evan Ingram still ate up most of the targets in that game. He had 11 targets last week. Darius Slayton only had 5. Sterling Shepard had 9, and then 6 went to Golden Tate. Golden Tate, you just have to worry about where he stands in the offense. He's been suspended, obviously, wasn't able to get a lot of practice time in, and now he's not coming in with the – he probably expected he was going to be playing with Eli Manning at this point, and now he's got a rookie quarterback who's probably, at this point, like we said, rookie quarterbacks and tight ends, man, they just connect. I mean, obviously Greg Olsen and Kyle Allen missed last week, but Christian McCaffrey ran wild. I think you could put Christian McCaffrey in that blanket of you could just throw it to him when you need him at this point.
As for the Patriots, I mean, things are pretty, I wouldn't say that they're set and forget it, just because Sony Michel's kind of been up and down. He has a nice week last week. You think he comes back with another good weekend?
Yeah, I think if there was ever a game where, similar to their Washington game, where they could just sit back and let Sony Michel run. And like I said last week, I said this was going to be Sony Michel's game last week, because that Washington Redskins defense was awful. And not like the Giants are the worst defense in the NFL, but they're definitely not good, and not good enough to cover Julian Edelman and Sony Michel and James White. But this offense, it kind of depends if Josh Gordon plays. He played last week, so you just got to assume he's going to play again this week. But I think if you're starting Josh Gordon, you're starting I think you're starting Sonny Michel at this point. I know that you've got to be worried that James White comes in, but, I mean, he got 16 carries last week, was able to put one in the dirt. Julian Edelman, you got to play him. I mean, he had a monster game, and he probably saved a lot of your fantasy days because you weren't expecting that from Julian Edelman, who's still dealing with that chest injury. He's not healthy yet.
Philip Dorsett, and you also have Rex Burkhead out for tonight's game. I think this could possibly be a pretty solid James White game. I feel like we've said this a lot, and it's never really happened, but I feel like this wouldn't be a bad day to play James White, just because I think they'll get ahead, and they'll be more conservative with their play calling and have a lot of bubble screens for James White.
I mean, don't get me wrong, the Giants are scrappy. Probably a little bit more scrappy than Washington was last week. I mean, Washington only puts one score on the board. Still don't expect the Giants to put up enough points to make the Patriots throw the ball a lot. So that's what you have to sit with. I mean, Tom Brady attempted 42 passes, and Sonny Michel had a good game. So they put Washington in, like, they made Washington bend the knee on Sunday. I'd just be worried that they don't do that again. I mean, Tom didn't look exactly great. So
moving on to the games on Sunday, starting out with the game at 8:30 in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London.
It's a nice stadium.
Yeah, it is. It's actually not too bad. I wouldn't mind if they had a stadium over there and just had an NFL team in London. Wouldn't mind that. But that's beside the point. We have the Panthers and the Buccaneers. This one should be an interesting one because there are quite a few noteworthy plays here in fantasy. Starting out with the Bucs. I mean, both of the wide receivers for the Buccaneers looking pretty good, but Chris Godwin, my goodness, is he just a fantasy rock star this year. In my opinion, he's almost more valuable than Mike Evans moving forward.
Mike Evans had a bad game, but we still have to remember there was the game where Mike Evans had like 2 weeks ago. Mike Evans had a monster week, so I think it's going to be one of those where Chris Godwin might be more set in stone what his workload's going to be, and taking over what was Mike Evans' role several years ago. I think him and Jameis just have that connection now, and Chris Godwin has been consistent, and Mike Evans is going to be your big game play. But Carolina's defense is pretty dang good. I mean, their secondary is not great, but for what they did in New Orleans, who has a pretty decent defense, I'm not scared of Jameis right now. Jameis is playing pretty good. No interceptions last week, threw 2 touchdowns, and they looked pretty decent on the ground. So it's semantics at this point, especially if you drafted Mike Evans in the top 4 rounds. You're still probably playing him and hoping for that upside. But if you have Chris Godwin, it's very similar to like people who got DJ Chark in the last couple of weeks. He's now, you just start him at this point. He's now your wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1 if you got unlucky. So
yeah, I mean, to your point, with talking about Mike Evans, last week he had just 3 targets, 0 receptions for 0 yards. Just a very disappointing day for Mike Evans, fantasy owners such as myself. And as for Jameis Winston, I have him as my quarterback number 10. Godwin, I have him as my wide receiver number 7. And as for Mike Evans, I have him as my wide receiver number 15. So a little bit lower on him because Panthers have really been able to find ways to shut him down.
I will say this: don't expect the Mike Evans goose egg to happen very often.
No, absolutely
that's
not.
Going to be a rare. That's a rare goose egg. I mean, he was drawing coverage from probably the best cornerback playing right now in the NFL. I mean, that's just how it is with Jalen Ramsey out. So I wouldn't expect that to happen every week. But O.J. Howard is a definite drop. We've been saying it for weeks, but you have to get rid of him. And now probably Cameron Brate too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you were really owning Cameron Brate to start with, but yeah, to your point, I think both of those players are those you should be dropping. Nothing really else to talk about here. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, set it and forget it. He's been unbelievable. Greg Olsen, if you have him, you're starting him. All right, let's talk Texans and Chiefs. The Chiefs, man, the past 2 weeks combined just 1 touchdown for Patrick Mahomes. Are you concerned as a Chiefs fan and as a fantasy owner of Patrick Mahomes?
I'm concerned as a Chiefs fan, but not for the reason that you think. Not because of Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is playing behind an offensive line that is brutalized right now. I mean, left tackle and right guard both gone, or left tackle, left guard both gone. So the left side is now, his blind side is now full of backups and a rookie.